Jenny, thanks very much for joining us today. You're obviously co-leader of Aberdeen Council. Just tell us a little bit more about the sort of green city initiatives for Aberdeen.
Well, Richard, I think in Aberdeen, we've realised for a while that if we're to reach the environmental targets that have been set by government, then cities are going to play a leading role in that. And particularly Aberdeen, because we host the oil and gas industry within our city for the North Sea exploration. It's important, I think, that we are playing a major part in that because the oil and gas companies need to be part of that solution. So for some time, we've been looking at ways in which we can diversify our economy, and energy transition is a huge piece of that work. So as a local authority, we've got a route map of our own for our decarbonisation of our own organisation, but we've been looking much further across the city and indeed the North East region and what we can put in place in order to achieve that and meet the environmental targets that we need. Now, part of that has been us bringing forward a net zero vision along with a strategic infrastructure plan. And I think that's the important bit because it's about the delivery of that vision. If we're to be successful and reduce carbon emissions and get to that net zero target, then we need to make sure that we are investing in the infrastructure that will allow us to do that. And that's what we brought that forward earlier this year. And we've set up a leadership board, which has, I'm delighted to say, national players sitting around the table who are going to drive forward with that agenda. And I feel fortunate to chair that leadership board. And we'll be doing everything that we can to make sure that we can fulfil the elements of that vision in the next few years so that Aberdeen will most certainly be at that, not just the net zero ambition, but actually we have ambitions around being a climate positive city. And we believe that vision and strategic infrastructure plan will help us do that.
And you've been something of a leader also, Jenny, in terms of hydrogen, particularly for the transportation side, in the news recently around the first double-decker hydrogen bus. I suppose, what's driving that and how much of an influence will that have on this kind of green city agenda?
Well, for some time, Aberdeen has been looking at the diversification of our economy, away from the dominance of oil and gas, but very much playing to our strengths around that technical knowledge and expertise that we've built up. And as a result of that, we've really stepped forward as a local council. We've invested heavily in a hydrogen project, which is based around transportation. We used European funding to help us do that, but we've invested considerable resource ourselves. And we're building on that as we move forward. We started off with 10 single-decker buses where we worked with the local private bus companies. And recently we're delighted to have been able to bring the first double-decker bus in the world, I think it was actually, to Aberdeen. And we have plans to roll out, hopefully in total 25 within the city. We have built up the hydrogen infrastructure where we have 2 plants within the city already, and also at Teka, our new development there has an energy centre that's driven by hydrogen. But we've started with the transportation, and I think that will be important because if cities are to decarbonise, the transport elements within cities is key to reducing our carbon levels. But it's also about how we build on that going forward. So very much part of our energy transition plans is the hydrogen hub that we've brought forward, and I'm delighted to say have secured funding from Scottish Government in relation to that because they can see what our vision is and what that can bring, not just for Aberdeen and its economy, but Scotland and the UK economy as well. So we want to build on the transportation to begin with. We'll roll that out. We're working with other local authorities in order to do that. But we also want to bring hydrogen down to that commercialised levels around heating for both residential and commercial properties. And again, Aberdeen has a long history of district heating systems over the last 20 years, and that we want to make sure that we are utilising that to best effect. But probably the ultimate prize for us is around the production of hydrogen from a green source, so offshore wind power to create that green hydrogen which ultimately we will be able to export to other places within the UK, but also across the globe as well. And I think that's the big prize, not just for Aberdeen as a local authority, but for the UK as a whole, because that's what's going to help us to get to that climate positive city, which is within our desire and our plans through the vision and the strategic infrastructure plan.
Really interesting to see Aberdeen being at the forefront of things like hydrogen and these alternative power and heating. I'll be very interested to track this as it goes forward as well. Jenny, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Richard.